Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to have a look at the Western Hemlock, which is one of the Western temperate rainforest giants, I would say. One of those there's a group of trees that I would consider make up the majority of the general region. So the Western Hemlock grows all the way from Alaska down to California, through BC, British Columbia. In a couple of areas, there's a inland band of temperate rainforest, a little cooler. They grow a little bit smaller there. And where we are today is the western kind of band that follows the kind of rainforest area or close to. So the hemlock's a tree that is generally comes in kind of second after kind of a disturbance. There will be a pioneering group, and then the hemlocks, which are shade tolerant, grow up from the forest floor, wait for gaps, and kind of make their way up that way. They're a large tree. I believe exceptional trees can be 250 feet, maybe even a little more. The ones here, this is a second growth area. This is not a kind of a ancient forest. This area has been logged. Okay, so we have a few hemlocks, 1, 2, 3, growing beside a western red cedar. But I just wanted to show this because we are on the north shore of Vancouver, North Vancouver, in the Capilano area of the Capilano River Valley or Gorge. So one of the invasive species in the area is English ivy, and we can see some of that growing on this one. So I don't necessarily think they're a threat to a tree this large, but some trees they can certainly smother, kind of cover and weigh down the branches, that type of thing, rob their the parent tree of light, that type of thing. So hopefully that doesn't happen here, but kind of interesting that that we're seeing that right here. So try to zoom in a little bit, but that's as good as we're going to get. Here's something that's kind of common in this area. The smaller trees that didn't quite make it, this one has died, just absolutely draped in moss. I'm assuming that happened after. Sorry about the noise, as you can see below us, the Capilano River. So, drowning my voice out a little bit, but anyway, just, yeah, absolutely draped in moss. So, just kind of interesting to see. I'm assuming that kind of grew in after the tree died, but there's a lot of it here. And you can see in this little more mature specimen that is still alive, the lower branches that no longer have needles are completely draped in moss here. So kind of interesting characteristic in the area. All the trees are kind of like that. This is a bit of a microclimate here because the humidity of the river and the rapids here makes for an environment that is conducive to moss and lichen growth. So okay, here's a young western hemlock with these really green, quickly growing tips here. We are in late May, so things are growing quickly. But let's have a look at the undersides. We can clearly see a line down the needle. These aren't like a spruce or pine or anything like that. They're very soft needles. They're flat, quite wide as well. But yeah, this is a young tree growing vigorously in an area with a little bit of an opening, so it's getting a little bit of sun, so it's growing fairly quickly here. All right, so here we have a western red cedar stump cut. you know, from being logged. And this is a perfect example of what the Western Hemlock kind of likes to, its preferred growing substrate. And we can see this isn't a very large one. There's two here actually. But what's incredible is the shapes that the roots take around the structure, the rotting structure of the large cedar stump. And the roots are pretty evident all the way around. We're right kind of beside a path here, a boardwalk trail. So you can kind of see right down into it. It's kind of nice to be able to just kind of look at it just like this. And we can see a little bit more mature specimen. We have a rough bark scale pattern, but not anything like the Douglas fir. They do hold a lot of moss on some of the older growth specimens. But the main thing to kind of, one of the main things to look for when you see a stump like this and a tree sticking out is if you look at the kind of fine feathery needles, yeah, that's a good way to identify the Western Hemlock. Plus, I'll show a little bit of the cones here. They're small, less than an inch, maybe between 1 and 3 centimeters, maybe 3 centimeters. They don't have the scales or bracts similar to the fir cones that we have looked at, the Douglas fir. They're rounded, they're smaller. And one thing I noticed is I see a lot of last year's cones on the ground, but very few new cones. I don't know if it's the time of year that I kind of visit these areas, or if there's something else to it. However, that's one thing that I have noticed. So, and I just want to show a couple other examples here. Up here, just to our right, is what we call a nurse log. So this is a Douglas fir log that came down, and I know this because I've seen some remnants of the bark. We'll look down this way. We have a Douglas fir log, and then we have a row of hemlock growing up out of it. They're not very big yet. The log's been here for quite some time. But the mosses and things like that grow on these rotting logs are enough to hold the seed of these kind of mostly hemlock, but there's other kind of epiphytic plants and trees, even these maples that are growing nearby. Sometimes they grow out of the stumps as well, but it's just kind of shows the importance of this kind of rotting wood in an ecosystem like this. So this is a secondary forest, meaning like it was logged at some time. I would say it's now a mature forest still, but it's not an old growth forest. But things like this are kind of indicative of an older growth forest. So, and actually nearby there's a very large example of a hemlock that we're going to have a look at now. Okay, so here we have a really large example, probably somewhere in the range of 6 feet, a little less than 2 meters at the base. This one is a little bit buttressed. That may be because of what it was growing on. It might have been growing on a log or a large stump, something like that. It is growing next to a creek, and it is absolutely covered in mosses and lichens, the trunk. It's really quite amazing. So we're going to take a little bit closer look here. Okay, so as we get a little closer, it's covered in the needles and mosses and other kind of epiphytic plants higher up, and massive lichen growths. And this truly is a giant. It's I'm not sure of the height. It's really hard to tell in kind of this closed canopy, but what a spectacular trunk. Amazing. Okay, so I think a fitting spot to end the video here is this very large, very I guess, well, at least we can kind of see the crown here a little bit up through the trees. Large, kind of typical specimen here. However, what's interesting is we can see this one was growing on a rotting log, and the log has since disappeared. So we kind of have a tunnel through it where it kind of grew over whatever it was growing on, a log or a stump or something like that. So we have quite a bit of moss growth, little algae, that kind of thing on this one, but pretty interesting. The growth habits of the Western Hemlock make it really unique. So thanks for watching.